The cold metal walls of Horizon's Edge Station hummed softly in the darkness of space. Commander Jake sat in his chair, watching the stars through the large window. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't care. This was his favorite time of day, when the station was quiet and peaceful. Jake had been commanding this deep space monitoring station for 3 years now. It was far from Earth, sitting at the edge of human space like a lonely lighthouse. Most people thought his job was boring. They were probably right. Day after day, his crew listened to the sounds of empty space, looking for anything unusual. The station had 4 main crew members. Lisa Parker worked the communications desk, always wearing her bright blue headphones. She could hear signals that others missed. Cooper handled security and weapons, though they rarely needed either out here. Brooks was their science officer, always excited about every small discovery. Jake checked the time. It was almost midnight ship time. Lisa was still at her station, which was normal for her. She often worked late shifts, saying space never slept, was probably doing his evening security check, had gone to bed an hour ago after spending the day studying star charts. The station had been tracking strange energy readings from the Vega sector for 2 months now. Thought they might be natural events like solar flares from distant stars. Jake wasn't so sure. Something about the patterns felt different, almost like they had purpose. Lisa suddenly sat up straight at her desk. She pulled her headphones off and turned to Jake with wide eyes. "Commander, you need to hear this," she said, her voice shaking slightly. Jake walked over to her station. Lisa's screen showed waves of data flowing down like digital rain. She pointed to a specific pattern that kept repeating. "This isn't random noise," she said. "Look at the structure. It's too organized, too perfect. This is artificial." Jake leaned closer. Even he could see that this signal was different from their usual readings. Where cosmic background radiation looked chaotic and wild, this signal had clear patterns, like someone was trying to send a message. "How long has this been coming in?" Jake asked. "About 20 minutes. It repeats every 47 minutes exactly. The signal is weak, but it's definitely there. Commander, I think this might be first contact." Jake felt his heart rate increase. First contact. Every person in space dreamed about it, but most never expected it to actually happen. He called into the communications center. Arrived first, still carrying his security tablet. When he saw the data on Lisa's screen, his expression became serious. Came running, still in her sleep clothes but fully awake. "What do we have?" asked, pushing her glasses up her nose. Lisa explained what she had found. Studied the signal patterns, her excitement growing with each passing minute. "This is incredible," said. "Look at these mathematical sequences. They're using prime numbers just like we theorized aliens might do, and these other patterns, they look like star charts." Jake made a decision that would change everything. According to regulations, they should immediately report any possible alien contact to Earth Command. But Earth was 6 hours away by quantum communication, and the signal was getting weaker with each repetition. "Lisa, can you boost our receivers? I want to capture this signal at full strength." "Sir, that would require us to redirect power from other systems. We'd be operating outside normal protocols." "Do it," Jake said firmly. "We might not get another chance." For the next 4 hours, the crew worked to decode the alien message. Lisa boosted their communication arrays to maximum power, ran the signal through every decryption program they had, monitored their systems to make sure they stayed safe. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. The signal contained mathematical proofs that showed advanced understanding of physics. It included detailed star maps of their local region of space. Most importantly, it contained images and symbols that seemed to tell a story. Was the first to understand what they were seeing. "My God," she whispered, "this isn't just a greeting, it's a distress call." The images showed a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents, not unlike Earth, but other images showed the same world under attack by massive dark shapes that blotted out the sun. Cities were burning. Ships were fleeing into space. The mathematical portions of the message included coordinates, pointing to a star system 47 light-years away. The signal also contained what looked like technical specifications for some kind of weapon or defense system. "They're asking for help," Lisa said quietly. "Someone out there is fighting for their lives, and they're asking anyone who can hear them to help." Jake stared at the decoded message on their screens. The implications were enormous. Humanity was not alone in the universe, but their first contact was with a species in desperate trouble. The message made it clear that whatever was attacking these aliens was incredibly dangerous. "Commander," said, checking his security readings, "the signal is getting weaker. We might lose it completely within the next few hours." Jake knew he had to make another important decision. They could send this information to Earth and wait for orders, which might take days. Or they could act on their own, knowing that by the time Earth's bureaucrats finished debating, it might be too late. He looked at his crew. Lisa watched him with trust in her eyes, practically vibrated with scientific excitement, stood ready to follow whatever orders Jake gave. The alien message continued to repeat, growing fainter each time. Somewhere among the stars, an unknown species was crying out for help, hoping that someone would hear them and care enough to respond. Jake, commander of a small monitoring station at the edge of human space, realized that the next decision he made might determine not just the fate of an alien species, but humanity's place in the galaxy. Admiral Stone stared at the holographic display in the war room deep beneath Luna Command. The decoded alien message floated in front of her, its mathematical patterns and star charts glowing blue in the dim light. Around the large table sat the most important military and political leaders in human space. It had been 18 hours since Commander sent the signal from Horizon's edge. 18 hours of heated debate, analysis, and argument. The room felt tense, like a storm was building. "This could be a trap," said General William Hayes, his weathered face showing deep concern. "We know nothing about these aliens. They could be luring us into an ambush." Doctor leaned forward in his chair. As head of xenobiology, he had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. "General, the mathematical proofs in this message are incredibly sophisticated. The stellar cartography is perfect down to the smallest detail. This level of deception would be nearly impossible to fake." "Nearly impossible isn't the same as impossible," replied Captain. She had just returned from the frontier wars against the rebel colonies, and her experience with deception ran deep. "I've seen what desperate people will do to survive. Maybe these aliens are no different." Rubbed her temples. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, and the weight of the decision was crushing. Humanity had never faced anything like this before. First contact with an alien species was one thing, but being asked to fight in an interstellar war was something else entirely. "What do we know about their attackers?" she asked. Report from Horizon's edge had been thorough, even though the crew was still working with limited information. Doctor pulled up another display showing the dark shapes from the alien message. "The aliens call them devourers," he said. "Based on the images, they appear to be massive biomechanical entities. The technical data suggests they consume entire planets, stripping them of all resources before moving on." "Like locusts," muttered Colonel Tom Bradley from his seat near the window. "Worse than locusts," Doctor continued. "Locusts leave the land behind. These things seem to consume everything, including the planet itself." Robert, the diplomatic advisor, had been quiet through most of the meeting. Now he spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "We're discussing military action against an unknown enemy to save an unknown species. Don't we think we should try diplomacy first? Contact these devourers and see what they want." You can't negotiate with a plague, Captain said sharply. Some enemies can't be reasoned with. They can only be stopped. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity wasn't ready for interstellar war. Others said this was humanity's chance to prove they belonged among the stars. The politicians worried about the cost and the risk to Earth. The military leaders argued about tactics and strategy. President Helen had been listening to the debate through secure communication from Earth. Finally, her voice came through the speakers, cutting through the arguments. Admiral Stone, what's your recommendation? Stood up slowly. She had commanded fleets in 3 different wars, but none of those battles would matter if she made the wrong choice now. Madam President, I believe we have to help them, not just because we should, but because we must. If these devourers are as dangerous as the aliens claim, they won't stop with one world. Eventually, they'll reach human space. You're talking about sending our ship and best people into unknown space to fight an enemy we don't understand, the president said. Yes, ma'am, that's exactly what I'm recommending. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The UHS Defender was humanity's most advanced warship, equipped with experimental technology that had never been tested in real combat. More importantly, any crew that went on this mission might not come back. We'll need volunteers, continued. This can't be a standard military assignment. People have to choose to go. I'll go, Captain said immediately. My ship and crew are ready. No, replied. The Defender needs a captain with deep space experience, someone who understands exploration as much as combat. She turned to the display showing personnel files. Captain Dan Foster. He commanded the survey mission to the Tau system. He knows how to handle the unknown. Doctor raised his hand. I want to go too. This is the greatest scientific discovery in human history. We need on that ship. The medical challenges alone will be enormous, added Dr. Grace, who had been quietly taking notes. Treating alien physiology, dealing with unknown diseases, possibly even performing surgery on species we've never seen before. Nodded, Colonel Steve Johnson for military operations, Chief Engineer Tony Martinez for technical support. We'll need people who can think creatively under pressure. The planning session lasted another 6 hours. They discussed everything from weapons and supplies to communication protocols and emergency procedures. The mission would take the Defender through 47 light-years of unknown space to reach the alien. President made the final authorization from Earth. Operation is approved. Captain Foster will have complete autonomy once he leaves human space. This mission has priority over all other military operations. As the meeting ended, found herself alone with Doctor in the empty war room. Doctor, what do you really think we'll find out there? Looked at the star charts still glowing on the display. I don't know, Admiral, but I think we're about to learn that the universe is much more dangerous than we ever imagined. The question is whether we're strong enough to survive what we find. 3 days later, the UHS Defender launched from Luna Orbital Shipyard. Earth's entire population watched as the massive ship engaged its faster-than-light drive and disappeared into hyperspace. Humanity had just taken its first step toward becoming a galactic power, though no one yet understood what that would cost. Captain Dan Foster sat in his command chair as the stars stretched into lines around his ship. Behind him, his crew prepared for whatever they would find in the system. They were no longer just explorers or soldiers. They were humanity's first ambassadors to a galaxy at war. The UHS Defender dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light. Captain Dan Foster gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered from the transition. Around him, his crew worked quickly to assess their new surroundings. Status report, Dan ordered. We're in the system, Captain, replied Lieutenant Sam Phillips from the navigation station. All systems are green. No immediate threats detected. Dan looked at the main screen and felt his heart sink. The system was nothing like what the alien message had shown them. Instead of a beautiful blue and green world, they saw a planet covered in dark smoke and fire. Massive shapes moved through the clouds above the surface, too large to be natural. "My God," whispered Doctor from his science station, "what happened here?" Chief Engineer Tony Martinez was already scanning the planet with their most powerful sensors. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures. Whatever's down there is big, and it's active." "Sir," called Communications Officer Lucy Adams, "I'm picking up a transmission. It's weak, but it's definitely artificial." "Put it through," Dan said. The bridge speakers crackled with static, then cleared to reveal an alien voice. The words were incomprehensible, but the tone was unmistakable. Desperation, hope, and exhaustion all mixed together. Doctor activated his translation protocols, systems he had spent years developing for exactly this moment. Slowly, the alien words began to make sense. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Vex of the Defense Force. If you can understand this message, please respond. We are the last survivors of our world." Dan looked at his crew. This was it, humanity's first conversation with an alien species. "This is Captain Dan Foster of the United Human Ship Defender. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute. Then the alien voice returned, filled with emotion that needed no translation. "You came. You actually came. We have been calling for help for so long we thought no one would answer. Commander Vex, we need to understand your situation. What are these devourers?" "They arrived 2 years ago. First one ship, then hundreds. They attack everything that lives, consume everything they find, then move on to the next world. We have lost 17 colony worlds already." Dr. Grace, the ship's medical officer, leaned forward in her chair. "Commander, we'd like to meet with you in person. We need to understand how we can help." "That would be dangerous for you. The devourers attack anything that moves in our space. But if you truly wish to help, there is a safe zone near our 4th moon. I will meet you there." The Defender moved carefully through the war-torn system. Debris from destroyed ships floated everywhere. Some pieces were clearly alien technology, elegant and curved. Others were the remains of the attackers, dark and twisted metal that seemed to absorb light. Colonel Steve Johnson studied the wreckage through the ship's cameras. These devourers use some kind of biomechanical technology, part machine, part living tissue. I've never seen anything like it. "Are they ships or creatures?" asked Tony Martinez. "Both, I think," Steve replied. "Look at this hull fragment. It's not built, it's grown, but it has mechanical components integrated throughout." They reached the rendezvous point near the moon. A small alien ship was waiting for them, sleek and silver against the black of space. It was beautiful in a way that human ships were not, flowing like water rather than built like machines. "Bringing them aboard now, Captain," announced Security Chief Mark Taylor from the shuttle bay. Dan, Doctor, and Doctor went to meet their first alien visitors. The shuttle bay doors opened, and 3 figures stepped out. Dan had to remind himself to breathe. They were humanoid but clearly not human. They stood about 7 feet tall, with long limbs and graceful movements. Their skin looked like crystal, changing color as they moved. Right now, the colors were muted blues and grays, which Doctor guessed meant sadness or exhaustion. The leader stepped forward and spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "I am Commander Vex. Your arrival gives us hope we thought was lost forever." Doctor's translation system worked perfectly. "Commander, I'm Captain Foster. These are Doctor and Doctor. We want to understand how we can help your people." Vex's skin shifted to warmer colors, possibly indicating gratitude. The alien led them to a conference room where she shared the full horror of what had happened to her world. "The devourers came from beyond our star charts. They do not communicate, they do not negotiate. They simply consume. First, they take all organic matter, every plant and animal. Then they strip the minerals from the ground. Finally, they crack the planet itself and take the core materials. How many worlds have they destroyed? Doctor asked quietly. In our sector alone, 17 full worlds and 43 colonies. Billions of lives lost. They are like a disease that spreads from system to system. Commander Vex showed them tactical data on a holographic display. The Devourers had massive motherships that carried smaller attack craft. They could adapt to any defense, learning from each battle and becoming stronger. Our people are peaceful by nature, Vex explained. We had defensive weapons, but nothing designed for total war. We never imagined anything like this could exist. Colonel Johnson joined the meeting and studied the tactical data carefully. Commander, show me their command structure. How do they coordinate their attacks? They appear to share a group mind. Destroy one ship and the others learn immediately. But we have noticed that when certain larger ships are damaged, the smaller ones become confused. Hive mind with command nodes, Steve muttered. Take out the commanders and the soldiers lose direction. Dan looked at his senior staff. They were all thinking the same thing. They had been fighting a defensive war, trying to protect what they had left. But humans had experience with a different kind of fighting. Commander Vex, how many Devourers are currently in your system? 3 motherships and perhaps 50 smaller craft. They are preparing for the final assault on our last city. Dan made his decision. We're going to help you fight them, but we'll do it our way. Vex's skin shifted to bright gold, a color that clearly indicated surprise. Captain, you have one ship. They have an entire fleet. Sometimes one ship is enough if you use it right, Dan replied. We're going to show these Devourers something they've never seen before, human warfare. The battle began at dawn on the Captain Dan Foster watched from the bridge as 3 massive Devourer motherships moved toward the planet's last surviving city. Each ship was the size of a small moon, dark and twisted like a nightmare made real. All hands to battle stations, Dan announced over the ship's communication system. This is what we came here to do. Colonel Steve Johnson was already in the shuttle bay with his Marines, checking weapons and equipment one final time. The plan was dangerous and simple. While the Defender attacked the motherships in space, Steve would take his ground forces to strike the Devourer command centers on the planet's surface. Remember, Steve told his troops, these things have never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. Use that advantage. On the bridge, Chief Engineer Tony Martinez monitored the ship's power systems. He had spent the last 3 days modifying their weapons to fight an enemy unlike anything humans had ever faced. Captain, I've got the electromagnetic pulse ready. One shot should disrupt their communications for about 10 minutes. Doctor, are you ready for casualties? Dan asked. Dr. Grace stood at her medical station, surrounded by supplies for treating both human and alien injuries. Ready as I can be, Captain. Commander Vex has given me basic information about physiology. The first Devourer attack craft reached the Defender's position. They moved like living things, flowing through space rather than flying. Their weapons were unlike anything in human experience, firing beams of energy that seemed to eat through metal. Evasive maneuvers, Dan ordered. Tony, hit them with everything we've got. The Defender's missiles struck the lead attack craft, but the explosions seemed to be absorbed by the enemy's dark hull. The creature ship writhed and twisted, then kept coming. Conventional weapons aren't working, reported Weapons Officer Carl Davis. Their hulls are adapting to our attacks. Then we try something they haven't seen before, Dan said. He turned to Tony. Fire the electromagnetic pulse. A massive wave of energy erupted from the Defender, washing over the Devourer ships like an invisible tsunami. Immediately, the attack craft began to behave differently, moving in confused circles instead of coordinated attacks. "It's working," shouted Communications Officer Lucy Adams. "Their group coordination is breaking down." On the planet's surface, Colonel Johnson's Marines were fighting their way through a ruined city toward the Devourer command centers. The enemy ground forces were like nothing they had trained for, part machine and part monster. "Use the explosives on their joints," Steve called over the radio. "They can't adapt if we blow them apart completely." Sergeant Bill Rogers led his squad through the rubble of what had once been a beautiful alien building. The Devourers had left nothing untouched, consuming everything of value and leaving only destruction behind. "Contact front," Rogers reported. "3 large ones coming our way." The Devourer ground units were massive, each one the size of a tank but moving with organic fluidity. They had weapons grown into their bodies, firing the same energy beams as their ships. Rogers and his Marines used human tactics that the Devourers had never encountered. Instead of meeting them head-on, they used hit-and-run attacks, striking from cover, and then disappearing before the enemy could respond. "These things are used to fighting Rogers told his squad. "The fight defensively, trying to protect what they have. We fight differently." Back in space, the battle was intensifying. The Defender had managed to destroy several attack craft, but the motherships were responding with increasing aggression. One of them began moving directly toward the human ship. "Captain, that mothership is charging some kind of weapon," warned Science Officer Lee. "Energy readings are off the charts." "Can we outrun it?" Dan asked. "Not at this range," replied Navigation Officer Sam Phillips. Dan made a decision that would be remembered in human military history. Instead of running, he ordered the Defender to charge directly at the mothership. "Full speed ahead, all power to forward shields." The crew stared at their captain in shock. No one attacked a Devourer mothership directly. It was suicide. "Sir, are you sure about this?" asked Lieutenant Phillips. "Trust me," Dan said. "Tony, prepare to overload the main reactor on my command." Tony's eyes widened with understanding. "Captain, that could destroy us too." "Better than letting them destroy the." The Defender raced toward the massive mothership at full speed. The enemy vessel tried to turn its main weapon toward the approaching human ship, but it was too slow. Dan had counted on the mothership's size working against it. At the last possible moment, Dan gave the order: "Overload the reactor. Emergency power to quantum disruptor field." Tony's modifications to the ship's power systems created an effect no one had expected. Instead of exploding, the reactor generated a massive quantum interference field that spread outward like a bubble of disrupted space-time. The effect on the Devourer mothership was immediate and devastating. The creature ship began to convulse as its quantum-based communication systems failed completely. Without the hive-mind connection, individual sections of the ship began fighting each other. On the planet, Colonel Johnson's forces felt the change immediately. The Devourer ground units suddenly stopped their coordinated attacks and began moving randomly, like machines with broken programming. "Now," Steve ordered, "hit their command centers while they're confused." The Marines struck with precision and violence that shocked even Commander Vex, who was monitoring the battle from the command bunker. The humans didn't just fight the Devourers, they demolished them with an efficiency that seemed almost brutal. Doctor worked frantically in the medical bay as wounded soldiers were brought back from the surface. She had never treated injuries like these, caused by weapons that seemed to eat flesh rather than simply cutting it. "Hold still," she told Marine Private Clark as she worked to stop the spread of a Devourer energy wound. "I think I can neutralize the effect." Her quick thinking and medical knowledge saved dozens of lives that day, both human and. The tide of battle turned completely when the second mothership lost communication with its command ship. Without coordination, the Devourer forces became vulnerable to the combined human assault. Commander Vex, led the remaining forces in their first offensive action in 2 years, inspired by the humans' example. Her skin glowed bright gold as she coordinated the final assault on the Devourer ground positions. By sunset, the last Devourer craft was fleeing the system. The creatures that had seemed unstoppable just hours before were running from a single human ship and a handful of Marines. Captain Foster stood on his bridge, looking at the tactical display that showed clear skies over for the first time in 2 years. "Status report," he said quietly. "All Devourer forces have withdrawn from the system," reported Lieutenant Adams. "The planet is secure." Dan nodded, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. Humanity had just fought its first interstellar war, and they had won. 6 months after the battle for the Captain Lucy Adams stood on the bridge of the UHS Guardian, watching dozens of alien ships approach their position. She had never imagined seeing so many different species in one place. Lucy had replaced Captain Dan Foster when he chose to stay on to help with rebuilding efforts. Now, she commanded a small fleet of human ships that had arrived to find a galaxy very different from what they expected. "Captain, we're receiving communications from 17 different species," reported Communications Officer Peter Wright. "Commander Vex is translating for us." The news of humanity's victory had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. They had an advanced communication network that reached dozens of star systems, and word of the Devourer defeat had traveled through it like wildfire. What surprised the humans most was learning how many intelligent species actually lived in their region of space. The galaxy was crowded with life, but most species had been too frightened to reveal themselves until now. "Captain Adams," came Commander Vex's voice over the communication system, "I would like you to meet representatives of the Galactic Council." The main showed a magnificent alien ship, larger than anything humans had built but clearly designed for peace rather than war. Its hull was white and gold, covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change as Lucy watched. "This is Elder of the People," Vex continued. "His species has guided the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years. The alien who appeared on screen was unlike anything Lucy had ever seen, looked ancient and wise with features that seemed carved from living crystal. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "Captain Adams, your species has done something remarkable. You answered a call for help from strangers and risked everything to save a world you had never seen. This is not common in our galaxy." Lucy felt the responsibility of speaking for all humanity. "Elder, we did what we thought was right. When someone calls for help, you help them." "Yes," the Elder replied, "but most species in our galaxy have learned to be careful. There are many dangers among the stars, and most worlds choose safety over heroism." Over the following days, Lucy learned the true scope of galactic civilization. There were over 40 intelligent species in their local cluster alone, most of them peaceful traders and explorers. They had formed the Galactic Council as a way to share knowledge and settle disputes without war. But the Council had one major weakness. They had no way to defend themselves against threats like the Devourers. When faced with real danger, they could only hide and hope the threat would pass them by. "For 200 years we have heard stories of the Devourers," explained of the aquatic tidal people. "They would appear in a system, consume everything, then disappear for decades. We thought they were myths until the attacks on space began." Doctor had spent weeks studying the different alien technologies and biological data. His findings amazed even him. "Captain, the diversity of life in this galaxy is incredible," he told Lucy during one of their briefings. "Each species has developed unique solutions to the challenges of space travel and survival. We could learn things that would advance human science by centuries." But with knowledge came responsibility. The Galactic Council formally recognized humanity as a member species, but they also asked for something in return. "Your people have proven they can fight when others cannot," Elder explained during an official ceremony on the "We request that humanity serve as the military protectors of our alliance." Lucy understood what this meant. Humanity would become the galaxy's police force, the ones called upon when diplomacy failed and force became necessary. It was an honor, but also a burden. Admiral Jake, promoted after his role in discovering the original signal, had arrived to help establish humanity's first galactic embassy. He stood beside Lucy as they watched construction crews from 6 different species working together to build the new facility. "Do you think we're ready for this responsibility?" Lucy asked him. Jake watched a group of human children playing with young in the embassy gardens. The alien children's crystal skin sparkled with happy colors as they laughed together. "I think we have to be ready," he replied. "The galaxy needs protectors, and apparently that's us now." Dr. Grace had established the first medical center, where doctors from multiple worlds shared knowledge about treating different types of life. Her work had already saved hundreds of lives and created medical breakthroughs that benefited everyone. "The amazing thing," she told her staff, "is how similar we all are underneath. Pain is pain, hope is hope, no matter what species you are." Captain Dan Foster had indeed remained on the, now serving as the first human governor of the joint colony called New Haven. The city had become a symbol of cooperation between species, where human engineering combined with artistry to create something beautiful and functional. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez had revolutionized galactic communication by developing universal translation protocols based on his quantum interference discoveries. Now any species could talk to any other species instantly, breaking down the barriers that had kept the galaxy divided. Colonel Steve Johnson commanded the new Galactic Defense Force, training soldiers from multiple species in human military tactics. His methods were tough, but they worked. For the first time in galactic history, there was a real military force capable of protecting peaceful worlds. The transformation was remarkable. Within a year, trade between worlds increased by thousands of percent. Scientific discoveries happened daily as species shared their knowledge. Art and culture flowed freely between worlds that had never known each other existed. But the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about itself. The old days of hiding and hopping were over. Now there was hope, protected by those willing to fight for it. Captain Foster stood on the observation deck of New Haven's central tower, watching ships from dozens of worlds coming and going in the busy spaceport below. Commander Vex joined him, her skin showing the warm gold colors that meant contentment. "Do you ever regret answering our call for help?" she asked. Dan smiled, thinking of the simple monitoring station where it all began. "Never. That cry for help didn't just save your world, it brought us all together." In schools throughout the galaxy, children of many species learned together, studying subjects their parents never could have imagined. They learned human military history alongside philosophy, wisdom alongside tidal environmental science. They were the first generation to grow up in a truly galactic civilization, one where differences were celebrated rather than feared, where the strong protected the weak, and where a cry for help would never go unanswered again. The galaxy had indeed been reshaped, not by conquest or force, but by the simple human belief that when someone needs help, you help them. That belief had become the foundation of a new age among the stars.